All right, Torah followers, y'all need to listen up here. These are the ones who have been woken up to the deceptions. They have been woken up to God's law. You've been woken up to the truth. But the problem is, you're like a runaway diesel. I don't know if y'all have ever seen a video of one of these, but the diesels, they can get going and then they just rev up and blow smoke everywhere and they can't stop. You can't shut them down because of the way they're designed. This is what most of the Torah group has done. You've become runaway diesels. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go search up a video real quick and see, and you'll understand the concept here. So if you're keeping the feast, if you're trying to learn Hebrew, if you're trying to go by all whatever laws apply to you, 250 or whatever they are out of the 613, if you're wearing tzitzits, if you're trying to do the feast, like all this stuff, right? If you're saying shalom, shalom, and you're doing your Torah thing, and you're reading out of the Pentateuch and the Mishpash and all this other stuff, right? All that is part of the too far right. And I've got a verse here for y'all specifically that literally tattletales on what you're going to do and what you've done. See, you got to understand, again, I've said this so many times, the Bible, nobody seems to understand this. The Bible is written where it tattletales on everybody in the end days. It's literally written to warn everybody, to show everybody what everybody is going to do and say. And it's usually telling you, they're going to do this and say this, so don't do that. These people are going to say this and do this, don't do that. Yeshua's words so many times in the beginning of his teachings were, beware, do not let any man deceive you. So this is Deuteronomy 29:19. And I mean, this is it's going to speak for itself. It completely calls out the Torah group. So it says, and it comes to pass when he heareth the words of this curse, that he bless himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace, though I walk in the imagination of my own heart, to add drunkenness to thirst. Let's break this down. So the first line, and it comes to pass when he heareth the words of this curse. Is that talking to the apostate Christian church? No, this is directly directed to those who have woken up to the fact that we must keep the commandments. You've learned about the curses and blessings of not following covenant. Christians, you need to listen up too. So you've understood the curses. I think Deuteronomy 28, actually 28 or even some of 29 possibly goes over the curses. So they've understood that they have to keep the commandments. The problem is then they think Ecclesiastes, when it says this is the full duty of man to keep the commandments and da-da-da, it's like they think it's every single one in the sacrificial law and everything. They go too far. They go too far. They're not rightly dividing the word, okay? That he bless himself in his heart. What are y'all doing? When you learn about the commandments and you know you've been woken up, and that joy you feel when you realize you have to keep the commandments, and you start trying to keep the commandments, and you feel great inside, you're blessing yourself in your heart, saying, I shall have peace now. See? When you learn that you got to keep the commandments, and you start keeping them, you fulfill this. You'll have peace now. Oh, I'm right with God now. I'm keeping the commandments. That's what you think. I mean, I know, because I used to be one of you. Like, I get it. How do you think I could preach on this unless I've been on both sides? I've experienced all of it. I've experienced apostate church. I've experienced the Torah movement. I've experienced the depths of Satan, which you really don't. If it's not given to you, don't get into that, because that crap it steers you off 1 degree, and you don't notice it at first, but a year or two later, 6 months later, you're way off course. So I shall have peace, though I walk in the imagination of mine heart. You've deceived yourselves into thinking that you have peace with God because you keep the commandments. But you don't realize you're putting a stumbling block and a yoke of burden back on people when you try to teach them to keep the sacrificial law, the tzitzits, and the feast. I mean, the feast in itself is going to send you into captivity in the tribulation. Hosea 8, 11 through 13 tells you this. Amongst other things, tzitzits, sacrificial law, word police. Oh no, you've got to use the Hebrew word, Yeshua HaMashiach Ruach HaKodesh. See, that is all part of that. You're puffing yourself up. You're trying to sound all like, oh, I'm close to God because I speak a little bit of Hebrewish. It's Hebrew and English is what you're doing. And then you're claiming you know Paleo-Hebrew, which nobody knows, because the whole interpretations of that are drawn up by men who really don't know. They were guessing. And then they add drunkenness to thirst. Oh, this is my favorite part in this, because drunkenness is pride. And this shows you this. See, you're puffing yourself up in pride. You're filling your own belly with knowledge. But what are you doing with it? You think you're helping people by trying to tell them you're supposed to keep the commandments, but you're not. Because you're leading them down the path of destruction. If you don't follow the 10 and eat clean, where's the parable of the unjust steward come in here? Weren't you called to be the unjust steward? Quickly, write a check for half. That's why he was wiser than the children of light. Because you owe him a butt ton, but you realize there's not time to do all that. And so you're like, quickly, do what's required, the minimum to get in. And then let the Father and the Spirit of truth guide you the rest of the way. Once you get into the kingdom, then you'll be doing all that's required. See, Luke 13 is for y'all. Luke 13 tells you, look up the word iniquity. That word iniquity is different than the Matthew 7 word iniquity. Luke 13 iniquity is unjust. He's telling you. It was written to the Torah group. Look at what they're saying to them. So you're adding pride to your desire for knowledge, your thirst of His word. You're adding pride to that. Drunkenness to thirst. So you have to realize you've gone too far right. You don't need to wear the whole point of the tzitzits was to remind you to keep the 10 Commandments. The Spirit of grace does that now. You don't have to do that. The royal law does that. When your brother rebukes you because you're breaking the 10 Commandments and they start telling you, oh, you're breaking this commandment, bro. You need to watch out. Stop doing that. Like that, your brother is the tzitzit now. Supposed to be. You're going by the letter of the law. Stop doing that. Realize. Become the unjust steward. Stop doing the feast and your eyes will be open to all this. I'm telling you right now, please listen to me. If you repent from doing the feast, your eyes will be opened. I know because it happened to me and another brother at the same exact time. And others in our group have experienced the same thing. You got to repent from doing the feast. You don't have the calendar. You're in a profane land. You're still in exile. Like, you can't do them. So, if you really truly want to see and want to serve God with that heart that He gave you of grace, repent from the feast and you'll see